Hello, buddy. Welcome back. I'm the Strategy Professor, and this is going to be a Season 8 Leona guide. So if this is the first time joining me, you can access this Google Doc in the description, and you can access timestamps as well to help you navigate. So if you don't have time to watch the whole thing, be sure to check that out, and that'll give you kind of the TLDR version and help you find the most interesting parts. Okay, let's go ahead and think about Leona really quickly. Now, Leona has become a lot more powerful in the preseason than she was last season. Now, she still has the same strengths and weaknesses, but some of the runes and some of the specific itemizations and matchups and just overall meta shifts in terms of other champions that are popular or strong right now have really propelled her to be the #1 support as of patch 7.23 in solo queue. Certainly at Platinum and lower, and I would argue probably even at Diamond, maybe even up to Challenger, she's still really, really strong right now. So what's up with Leona? What makes her strong? And why has this changed over time? And how should you play her now? That's what we're going to be addressing in this guide. So first, let's look at Leona herself. All right, so Leona has really high base stats. She has 335 move speed, which is nice. Pretty nice base attack damage. Really nice health pool. 576 early. And one thing that she did get in the preseason, along with several other support tanks, is a lot of armor. So she got plus 20 armor, when a lot of other champions in the bot lane, like Sona, only got 9 armor. I think most of the 80 carries only got somewhere between 8 to 10 armor. So tanks like Braum, Leona, Alistar, all of them got a lot more base armor. So they're very, very tanky early on, as if she wasn't tanky enough already. And there was a change to her a few patches ago, if you look at this history, to make her do more damage off of her passive. Here we go. Okay, so they changed it from 25 to 144 damage. They changed it to that from 20 to 105. So that doesn't look like a lot. That's only 5 extra damage, but keep in mind that's every time your passive proc. So in an all-in, if your AD carry keeps attacking, you're probably going to proc this 3 times. So that's 15 extra damage early, which is massive. I mean, think about it from a percentage perspective, right? Going from 20 to 25, that's 25% more early game damage, and that keeps it that way. At the very end, it's even like almost 35% extra damage when you get to a high level, right? So that's an additional almost 40 off of 105. It's 39 off of 105. So it gets even higher in terms of percentage scaling increase. Now, the mark doesn't stay for as long, but really it doesn't need to stay that long in all-in situations most of the time. If your allies auto-attacking, then you're going to get the proc most of the time. And in addition to giving her that extra 20 armor in the preseason, they just flat out increase the bonus armor that she gets off of her Eclipse by 5, which is good. Nice little bonus. So that's something that is important to keep in mind that's changed this season, is that she gets extra damage. Another thing that changed fairly recently as of 7.17 is her Daybreak Shield changed from 9 seconds at level 1 to 6 seconds at all levels. And this is huge because Leona had been a 3-skill champion as support, which is bad. So what that means is she really wanted points in all 3 of her skills, right? She needs her W, and we'll go over the skills very briefly in just a second, but she needs her W for the tankiness and the AoE damage. That's always what you max. But then it was always the struggle, well, do you max your E, which is your engage, and also a light form of CC, or do you max your Q, which is a more guaranteed form of CC? And that was always a struggle because you want both, right? You want your all-in combo up as often as possible. So you want to be able to W, then E in, and then Q. And as a support, you're just not going to get to a very high level most of the time because you have to split experience with somebody. Also, you have to go around and ward. You have to rotate quite a lot. So you're just going to be missing a lot of experience. And they've removed the catch-up experience in the preseason for supports. You have to get large jungle monsters in order to get some of that catch-up experience, which you're just not going to get as most supports. So you're going to be a lower level in the preseason than you were, and it was already hard to get to a high level even before the catch-up experience nerfs. So what does this mean? It means that you can't afford to level up 3 skills most of the time, because you won't start really leveling your 3rd skill beyond 1 point until level 13 plus. And that's just too late in most games. That's not going to happen until, you know, over 30 minutes. And games are ending very quickly these days because there's just so much damage on the board. So that means that champions that rely very heavily on leveling up all 3 skills are going to be at an inherent disadvantage. So someone like Lulu can function, and Lulu has been pretty good in the preseason, but because she's just not going to be able to level up her Q most of the time. But that's a tough choice on Lulu because you want your Q early to wave clear, but you also want your E shield for the mid game, and you want your polymorph. So Lulu is a pretty decent example of someone who really wants all 3 skills but can't get it. So what this change does is it turns Leona into a 2-skill champion, which is huge because you don't have to put any points in Q anymore. Like, it's nice. You get extra damage. The cooldown it is unaffected, but you get a little bit of extra damage. But basically, it's not necessary. And they give you a free 3-second cooldown on this effectively, because usually you would level this up second. But now you don't have to because it's level 6 at all levels. So now you can just level up your W and your E and not worry about the Q, and you're still going to have some really good results. So it changed her from a 3-skill champion into a 2-skill champion, not including the ult. The ult obviously always level up. But that's really underappreciated by a lot of people and not really talked about. But I play so many support games, obviously, on this channel, and I can tell you it's a very, very big deal to only have to level 2 effective skills. It just massively increases your competitiveness. I mean, think about it. If you just leveled your E all the time before this change, then this gives you an extra like 33% CDR effectively on your Q, which is really important. So those are 3 changes that have just been huge for her. Just the overall kind of stat changes, extra, which makes her extra tanky. She got extra damage off of sunlight procs, and one of her core abilities got a 33% cooldown reduction, effectively. So, very, very nice. And the synergy with the runes, which we'll talk about in a second, all of this extra tankiness and damage really adds up with the runes. Let's go over her abilities, and we'll get into the runes first. Okay, so the sunlight proc, every time you hit somebody with an ability, that's your E, your Q, your ult, anything, will proc this. And there's no internal cooldown, if you noticed. So in theory, you could hit someone with 4 sunlight procs in a fight. So if you open up with your ult, an ally auto attacks them, you E in, ally auto attacks them, you Q, ally auto attacks them, then your W goes off, another auto attack. So, you know, you're looking at around level 11 or so, you're looking at potentially 400 extra damage from your passive, which is obviously really good. So that's part of why she feels like she does a ton of damage at level 3, because you can get 3 procs of this, and that's an extra 148 damage, which is a lot. I mean, you know, a lot of champions at level 3 are going to have between 700, 800 damage. So dealing about 150 damage, you know, it's going to be somewhere about 20% of their health that you knock off just with your passives. That's really good. Her Q, pretty standard, just a 1-second point-click stun on your auto attack. It does add some extra range, so it allows you, if someone's running away, to just maybe be able to just barely clip them with that. It has that static cooldown, which is awesome. It's very low mana cost, and its scaling is not that high, honestly, so you're not really missing out on much by not leveling this. And it's really important also that this is an auto attack reset, so this is great for clearing wards. So this is one thing that Leona does that really no other support can consistently do that I can remember, is if someone drops a ward right in front of you, like if you're in a bush and they try to ward it, if you just auto attack, Q auto attack, you'll be able to kill it by yourself as Leona, which is huge for bush control in lane, and it's very, very annoying to play against. She clears wards normally very quickly, so even if they don't drop it in front of you, if you sweep, you can clear that ward out really quickly, just auto, Q auto, and then walk out of there. So that's a unique skill of Leona, that she clears wards faster than any other support. And that's relevant. I mean, it may not seem like it, but having to stand there for that extra second auto attack a ward could be your death if the jungler's coming, or if the laners are trying to collapse and contest that ward. So it's seems very small and insignificant, but it's a big deal. It also allows you to take towers faster, because this reset, and I think the bonus damage applies to towers. I'm not 100% about that. I'm pretty sure it does, but it definitely resets your auto attack. So you just, as you finish your auto animation, you just Q, boom, hits the tower again, and that adds up over time. You get in maybe when you're trying to siege a tower, you get in 2 or 3 extra auto attacks. That's a lot. That might be an extra, 200 to 300 tower damage every time you do that. So it's a pretty big deal. And its mana cost is low enough where it's basically spammable. Okay, so it has a lot of utility. And then obviously in fights, you can auto attack reset too. So you go in with your E, and if you want to, you can attack and then Q afterwards to get in that 1 extra auto attack, which is really nice. That does give them time to get out of there faster if you do that. So it'll give them more time to flash or dash out of there if you don't immediately auto attack them off the snare with a Q ready. But it does add more damage, so it's kind of your choice how you want to do your all in. Either you E with the Q already procced just for maximum lockup, or you can E auto and then Q to give them that extra little, half a second to escape, but to add on extra damage. So overall, pretty nice, well-rounded ability. Has a lot of utility to it. Okay, Eclipse. So this is your core thing that you want to level up most of the time. So basically, you charge yourself with Sunlight. You don't get any extra cooldown reduction, which kind of sucks off of leveling it. But you get so much in terms of extra damage and extra bonus resistances that you still want to level it first. So basically, you have this ring around yourself for 3 seconds, and then it explodes. You cannot trigger it early. You have to wait for the full 3 seconds, and as it explodes, it does area of effect magic damage, and it gives everybody a sunlight proc when you hit them with that too. And both while it's charging, so for the initial 3 seconds, you get bonus armor and magic resist, and then if it hits at least one person, then you get an extra 3 seconds after that. Not 3 seconds per person, just a flat 3 seconds. So pretty standard. It makes her pretty tanky early on. Now they've nerfed this over time. But it's okay. So, level 1, you get an extra 25 armor and 20 bonus magic resist. So, that makes her pretty tanky, especially early on. It gives her some pretty decent all-in damage. If they don't run away and you trigger this on somebody early, then that's an extra, level 3, 60 plus, that's an extra 100 damage. So, pretty good, especially for a tank set. This allows Leona to do dives very effectively early on, too. So that's another thing, is if you want a tower dive, then you can certainly do it with Leona better than a lot of other champions. Okay, and then Zenith Blade, this is your engage, so it's got 875 range, pretty decent. It has a very slender hitbox, so you really have to just put it right on them. And this is what you'll level second, because it does lower the cooldown a little bit. Does okay magic damage, and it roots to the last person that's hit, and it roots them for 0.5 seconds. So it's important to note that this goes through everything to tag the last person hit, right? I don't think it goes through like a Braum shield. Might, but I doubt it. But it goes through almost everything, and then she pulls herself onto somebody. So it's not a hook in the sense like a blitz hook or a thresh hook. She goes onto them, which makes it particularly powerful because you can engage through a minion wave. She's one of the only hard engaged champions like that can go through a minion wave. Blitz, of course, has to hook around the wave. So does Thresh, so does Nautilus. But she can actually fight through the minion wave. And because you get all this extra armor off of your Eclipse and just the plus 20 from the preseason, then you don't have to worry as much about aggroing the minions. Yeah, they're still going to hit you, but you're going to have so much armor, especially if you take Aftershock, which I'll talk about here in a little bit. You're going to have so much extra armor that you can, for the most part, ignore the minions early on. I mean, if they have a stack of like 12 or something minions, obviously you might want to reconsider that. But, if it's just a standard like 6 minion stack, she can certainly consider going in more often than a lot of other champions because she gets all this bonus armor early on. Okay, so you go onto them. So that makes you always a threat. So if you stand there right on that minion line, it's very scary to go up and last hit as an AD carry, especially if your ADC is standing up there with you because you can go in any time. There's no time when they're ever safe, right? So they have to either dodge it or you're going on them. So that makes her uniquely powerful and in some ways even more of a threat than someone like Blitzcrank. At least with Blitz, prior to him getting Mobies, then you can just kind of hang out behind a minion wave and be safe from him, for the most part. So that's a unique threat that Leona possesses. However, that can backfire because, once again, it pulls you to them. So that's good that you get on them and you get to apply your full, suite of abilities, but it opens you up to ganks from the jungler, and if they are hanging out under tower, then you're going to take tower shots if you do that. So that means that lane positioning is very important. We can go ahead and talk about that. I was going to talk about it here in a second, but I'll just show it really quick. So more so than probably any other champion I could think of bot lane, it's very important that you manage the wave correctly. And unfortunately, as support, you're not going to have as much control over that as you would if you were AD carry. And it all has to do with her E. So, you know, if the lane, you want to keep it like right in the middle of the lane if you can, because that means that you can engage on them. They're not going to have too many minions probably, and you can engage on them without going under tower, and you'll still have some room to run away if the jungler comes in. But if you push the wave and it goes to like right here, and you're trying to, and they're just sitting here last hitting, you can't really harass them in any way because everything is short range on you. And your E is going to pull you under tower, which, unless you want to tower dive specifically, is obviously going to be bad. And that makes you very susceptible to getting ganked because you don't have any escapes. I mean, you can E onto the jungler and try to run out that way, but it's really dicey. So if you're going to push, it's very dangerous. So against, or with AD carries that are going to push, like Draven, like Tristana, most AD carries below Diamond are just automatically going to push the wave anyways. They're not even going to be thinking about wave positioning. So that makes it very dangerous as Leona to do this. Now, if they are pushing into you, it's okay because you can go into minions. But remember, they're going to have a much larger minion wave probably. But that's kind of the second best position. So the best position's in the middle, and the second best is if you can freeze it right here and then just freeze them out and just threaten to engage on them. So they're probably going to have more minions, which is going to make it more dangerous, but at least you're not going to be under a tower, and you're going to have the relative safety of your own tower. So if a jungler does come, then you might be able to escape. So ideally in the middle. If it's not in the middle, you kind of want them to push into you a little bit, and the worst position is pushing into them, which unfortunately is the default for most AD carries. So that is why Leona historically hasn't been that strong in high elo. Now in high elo, they know how to manage the wave better, but she's just so susceptible to counter ganks, and she requires very specific lane positioning. So if you're Blitzcrank, for example, if you're Blitzcrank or Thresh or something like that, you can still hook people out from under this tower and maybe kill them, or at least do a lot of damage to them, because you're not putting yourself at risk of going under the tower to do it. But with Leona, you are. So that's the difference, and that's why historically, one reason of many that a lot of people have preferred someone like Thresh to Leona. But there are reasons we'll talk about right in just a little bit about why this is Leona's time, why it's worth the risk to play Leona right now. And I personally have not been a huge fan of Leona in Platinum Plus ranked play for these reasons, because she's very dangerous and she requires very specific lane management to be effective. But she's so strong right now with Aftershock, with some of the itemization changes, that it's worth the risk. But this is historically, I'm just giving you the context, this is a major problem with Leona structurally that'll never go away unless they rework her E. So just be aware of that is a big risk to her, and then you can decide for yourself whether you think that risk is worth it or not. But yeah, so that's her E. It's unique. It does offer a persistent threat that can't be blocked by minions, but it also requires very strong lane management to use effectively. Okay. And then also, this is like, it's really bad if you're behind. This is another thing with Leona, because if you go into a fight, you're in there. Like, you have no escapes and you're going deep on everybody, right? So, later in the game, when you go into a team fight, if you go in there and it ends up being a bad fight, you're going to die. So unlike Thresh, now a lot of Threshes will just take the hook anyway, so they'll just effectively be a Leona late game without thinking about whether or not they should. But they don't have to, and high-level Thresh players won't take that hook a lot of the time. They'll just use it for crowd control to start a fight, but then they hang back and peel. And Blitzcrank pulls people out of position, so you don't really put yourself at risk a lot of the time if you hook somebody's Blitz, because you just hook them in, full combo them, and just run out, right? Whereas Leona, and so that means that Blitz is better at comebacks, because if your team's down, 10 kills and 2 towers, he can still hook that squishy AD carry and your team can kill him and then force a 4v5 afterwards, right? So you can still pick people off with Blitz. With Thresh, you can still hook somebody to start a fight and then hang out in the back and peel that assassin off your AD carry. With Leona, you can't do that. If you choose to go in, you're in. If you're behind, if it's a bad fight, you're going to die, and you might bait your entire team to die as well. So that just makes her a lot riskier, and it makes it a lot harder to come back if she gets really far behind. So, and that's reflected in her stats. If we look at, I think this will have timing on it. Let me see. Yeah, win rate by game length. So it doesn't have a graph here for you. Other websites will have graphs and things with it. But you can see that she's the second highest win rate. If it's 0 to 25, 25 to 30, she's still really high. But then as the game goes longer, she falls off big time because it's very risky to go in. And if you have one bad engage, then you're going to force your team to lose the fight and probably lose the game. And so she's a very early game snowbally type of champion. Okay, so that's just something to be aware of with Leona. And then finally, we've got Solar Flare. And this is one thing that makes her stronger than some of the other hook type of champions, is that this is a very low cooldown, pretty high range, effective engage for the most part. Now, people can flash or dash out of this, but it's only a 90-second cooldown. Thresh's box, which isn't really even an engage tool, has, I think it's 130-second cooldown, might be 140. It's pretty long. Nautilus is 130 on his ult. Blitz obviously has a low cooldown ult, but this means that she's very good at roaming as well. So she can fight early. If you get the advantage, she can just keep snowballing because this is almost always going to be up. It's pretty high damage. Your auto attacks gain extra range, 225 range. So you land that initial damage for 100, then you get 3 extra autos that get extra range, so you can land them more often and deal 30 extra damage. So it's really 190 damage. And then this is really 400 damage if you get 3 or 5 auto attacks off. Wow, that's even more. That's 500 damage if you get 3, but you're not going to be level 16 most of the time. You know, so you're going to get between 3 to 4 extra attacks. Even at 4, that's 435 extra damage at level 11. So that's quite a lot. And it can hit multiple people. It can stun. The slow is usually good enough as well. And then that allows you to hit your Zenith Blade in your full combo. And of course, this procs Sunlight as well. So she has a lot of crowd control. She has 3 different crowd control abilities, a pretty nice engage ult that's on a 90-second cooldown, 1200 range, and a lot of damage and a lot of tankiness. So overall, very, very powerful, snowball-y, hard engage, high damage tank. And that's really powerful in this meta. Now, they do have some nerfs planned for, at least one nerf planned for her that I've seen. Some people said there were more, but I don't see any more. This is what they have on the PBE for her so far. Oh, I think I've got it tagged right here. Here we go. So her Eclipse damage is going down from 60 to 40. So that is a pretty big deal. It does drop by 20 early on. But she does have quite an excess of damage right now. Like, she can almost kill somebody by herself, even if your AD carry doesn't proc Sunlight with Aftershock and Ignite. So I think that's fair, and I still think she'll continue to be really strong. Because until they nerf Aftershock, she's still going to be really good. And she might even be good after that, we'll see. But there is a minor nerf coming, so if you're watching this on later patches, you know, I expect them to nerf either her or Aftershock again after this patch. But as of the last patch in Season 7, that's going to last through January, I expect she'll still be strong if this is the only thing they hit her with, which is all that it looks like right now. So they could add on some more later, but right now it looks like she'll still be really strong. She'll still probably be number 1 most of the time. Okay. So yeah, I just went over her strengths. Very high damage, very durable with Aftershock. We'll talk about that here in a second, more detail. Excellent engage, excellent offensive CC, excellent roaming because she has a low cooldown, high impact ultimate. Weaknesses, pretty low mobility. All she has is her E, and she has to hook a target to hit that. So it's pretty unsafe for her to just kind of run around by herself in the jungle. She can get caught out and killed a lot, unlike Rakan, who can just like W away, or even like a something wacky like a Shin support that can still like dash away over walls. She doesn't have that. So she's kind of similar to Alistar in that respect, whereas if you get caught out warding, you're going to die. So you need very, very good vision control, not only because it's dangerous if your wards go down and you to reapply those wards, but also because, as I've said numerous times, she's very, very susceptible to ganks. So you need to know where the jungler is, and you need to know that it's safe, that you can engage bottom. And she has very strong dive potential. As I mentioned before, she has a lot of damage and a lot of armor and crowd control. So if you can spot the jungler and you see the jungler's top side, you can dive very early bot lane and get a lot of kills. So, you know, that's how she's balanced, is that she's very bad in uneven fights, or fights that are just not in your favor in general, if you're behind, she's not that good. But she's very strong at snowballing advantages early on. And she has the best... I would argue she probably has the best pre-6 tower dive. It's either her or Tahm Kench. She's definitely up there in the conversation. But she can really punish people for sticking around towers that they shouldn't be sticking around. And also, obviously, post-6, that doesn't really go down that much. It's just champions like Alistar also get better post-6, but she's still really, really good at diving towers at all points in the game. So her weaknesses, low mobility, I mentioned before, requires good wave management, very susceptible to ganks, very difficult when behind, and she has some really hardcore counter picks, which we'll talk about near the end of the video. But yeah, Tahm Kench that's probably one of the hardest counter picks in the game. Like, you almost literally can't do anything all game if there's a Tahm Kench around. Morgana is also pretty rough. You can work around Morg. You have to bait her Black Shield and then target switch. And you have to communicate that with your AD carry. But you can work around Morg, but Morg's annoying to deal with as well. Thresh is kind of a skill matchup, but he can be very difficult if he flays back your E a lot. But you're still going to be very tanky. You're still going to proc Aftershock, even if he flays your E. And so if you can still walk in there and proc your Q on somebody, you might be able to fight him even if he does that. So it just depends on how fast he flays it and just sort of his reactions. But overall, historically, Thresh is very good into Leona. Another reason she hasn't been played a lot in Platinum Plus, because Thresh has been super popular historically, and he just historically has a really good matchup against her. And then Janna is very good too, but Janna has been nerfed a lot. We'll talk about that in matchups. So Janna used to be much, much better against Leona, and Janna is still pretty good. But I think Leona might have the edge now. It depends on the Janna. It's a very skill-intensive matchup. Okay, so let's talk about some of these runes. So the runes that I recommend, so I'm going to tell you what I recommend, and I'm going to explain why and give you some numbers behind it. So I recommend, I don't know why I said Sorcery Domination. It's obviously Resolve Domination. There we go. Resolve Domination. So you want to go for Aftershock, Font of Life, Conditioning. If it's a really tough early game, you can get either the Armor or the Magic Resist one. But Conditioning is going to be the best if you think you can make it to 10 minutes, which is usually not a problem for Leona. Second Wind, and then Zombie Ward and Ingenious Hunter. Or you can go for something like Sudden Impact and Relentless Hunter if you want more damage and more snowballing. I would not give up Zombie Ingenious, and we'll talk about why I think that's really powerful. I think that's a powerful combination on pretty much anybody that's not an AP support. But we'll talk about why here in a second. I think that's super, super powerful. I do not see a lot of supports running this yet, but I think it's very, very strong, and I think it's going to be a meta-defining combination of runes that just a lot of people have not caught on to. And for Diamond Plus, I think that something like Future Market and Biscuit Delivery can be really strong. The boots can also be pretty good. And I'll go ahead and talk about these really quickly because I don't think I talk about them in here. So we'll talk about this Diamond Plus and why I wouldn't recommend this route for most supports that are under Diamond. So let's talk about Futures Market first. Inspiration is probably the most difficult rune tree to understand, like why it's good or why it's effective, because everything's just so weird. But let's look at it real quick. So you definitely don't want to get this as a primary. Like Glacial Augment's bad, Kleptomancy's bad on her. Unsealed Spellbook is something that in theory could be useful on many supports, but you have to have a very specific like composition and strategy to make that work, and you're just not going to see good quality use of Unsealed Spellbook most of the time outside of pro play. I do think that there will be strategies in pro play that can be very strong with this, and it might involve the support. So you might see the support later in the game take a second smite or something like that with the Spellbook. So they might start off with Ignite in lane, and then if you're about to go contest Baron, they might switch over to Smite, for example, so they can have a double Smite and make sure they secure Baron. So they can try to take it through traffic. Another option would be, you could do like Ignite plus Exhaust in lane early on, and then have your jungler camp that lane to force a 2v2, and then have your jungler ready to counter gank, because not having flash, it's going to draw a lot of attention that their jungler is going to come down. So you would want to properly set up vision for a counter gank and have your jungler like prepare their route and get the timing correct. to come down and counter gank when their jungler comes down to punish you for not having flash. And if you have a very good early game combination like a Leona plus Jhin, would probably be what you would see in pro play if they ran something like this. You could run like Leona plus Misfortune or Leona plus Varus maybe. But Leona plus Jhin would probably be the combination. And then you would run something early game like, I don't know, Ezreal, Nidalee, Lee Sin, Elise, something like that. So, in other words, it would require a lot of preparation. Your jungler would have to be on board. They would have to have a specific jungle route in mind, and you would have to be able to pressure with that exhaust ignite early and then switch out of it later. So there are a lot of options, is what I'm saying with Unsealed Spellbook. So you might see pro players do it, but it'll almost never be a good thing in solo queue because you're just not going to have the coordination and the strategic planning to make it work. So don't get this as your main tree. But as a secondary tree, it does give you access to Futures Market, and you'll probably see a lot of high-level Leonas getting this. And the primary reason for this is you hit your power spike a lot faster. So you can get your Sightstone faster. You can get... So it's probably better on utility champions that'll let them get something like Ardent Censer or Redemption faster. But this would let you get something like Locket faster, which can heavily influence team fights. It just lets you coordinate a power spike with your AD carry to be really strong. So for example, if your team really wants to coordinate around Dragon at 9 minutes or something like that, and you have Futures Market, you know, you might be able to buy that Locket one back faster than the enemy champion, and then you're going to have the Locket for the Dragon's fight, and they're not going to have it. So you could, or like if your AD carry is just about to finish, if it's Ezreal and he's just about to finish Trinity Force and you want to be really strong, and so, you know, you make sure that you get that Locket or you complete that Knight's Vow or, you know, some core item that coincides with your AD carry, then it can be really good. So, you know, it's okay, but once again, it requires coordination. You have to know the timing of backs. You have to know when your AD carry is going to be stronger than their AD carry and their support. And you have to coordinate this with your ally and really leverage that advantage. So you need to actually force a fight and get an advantage. As soon as you complete that Locket or Knight's Vow, you have to go all in and fight. Or you have to go like bully them off a dragon. Or it's just not going to be worth it because you don't get any money off of this. You actually lose money when you use it. So you will see some high-end Leonas getting this. But it's because, once again, they're very high-end Leonas. They're Challenger, High Diamond, Master Leonas. And they're going to coordinate this with their AD carry. And so they're going to know power spike windows and they're going to leverage and take advantage of it. Whereas, you know, in Platinum and Gold and lower, people aren't going to know that. Like the AD carries don't even build the right items most of the time. Like nobody understands or plays around power spike windows, wave management, objective control, and things like that. And, you know, that's not a knock. Everybody doesn't do it. Or I guess nobody does it would be the way to say that. But, you know, that's just how it is, right? That's just how it is. So it's just not going to be that effective. So if we look at some of these Leonas, and these are people, this is like Korean Platinum. Now these people are going to be higher than Platinum. Now some of them are going for Domination. Maybe people had just been trying Inspiration, because the last time I looked at this consistently was last week, and everybody was going Inspiration stuff on Leona. Okay, so he likes to go for the cheap shot Relentless Hunter, so he's going for more damage all in. So he's not quite going for the build that I recommend right now. He's going for the super heavy damage build, and he likes to get Unflinching over Font. That's alright. Check one other person here and just see if it looks like everybody's kind of switched over to Domination. So everyone is just trying out Inspiration, it seems. But yeah, a lot of people on a lot of supports, especially tanky supports, like to kind of go for this biscuit delivery and stuff like that. But that's just something that you might see sometimes, but I don't recommend that. For those reasons, you know, Diamond Plus, maybe, but most of the time, no. Okay, so which runes do I recommend? Why? How long are we? We're 34. I'd like to try to keep this under an hour. I think we can do it. So Aftershock. Aftershock is overpowered. This will get nerfed. guaranteed it will get nerfed. I don't know if they'll let it go until the start of the season 8, or if they'll nerf it earlier. This is a meta-defining rune right now, so there are pretty much 3 meta-defining runes, and they have nerfed one of them. They're nerfing another one on the next patch, and Aftershock is going to be the sole winner after that. So Aerie obviously was meta-defining, super powerful. It really propelled things like Teemo to top tier, Malzahar. Just anyone who had damage over time that could proc Aerie twice were really strong. And Aerie's still okay, but she's nowhere near as strong as she used to be. The other one is Press the Attack, and that's getting nerfed next patch. Now, it's not getting nerfed really hard, and a lot of people are still going to build Press the Attack. Okay, it's... I don't want to scroll up and find it. Basically, they're nerfing Press the Attack. It'll still be okay. It just won't be as overpowered. Pretty much the third hit won't trigger the extra 12% damage on that hit. And this is probably why Vayne's been popular. I've been like puzzling, like, why is Vayne so popular? Like, what's up with that? And it's probably because the Press the Attack with the Silver Bolts, when you land that third hit, it applies that extra 12% damage to the Silver Bolt proc. So now it won't do that. So that's going to hurt Vayne more than anybody else. And Vayne is already, like, iffy, I think, in this meta. And once again, this is only, like, high platinum Korean people. It won't let you choose any other, like, demographic on this site, but it's not that much different on a lot of other sites like champion.gg. But Vayne already kind of has a problem. You know, she's only 48%. And in my experience, she's a lot lower than that, anecdotally. But I think that's why people maybe played her. People probably just play her because they like her and she's got a new skin. But the thing that was kind of making her okay is the third attack on Press the Attack. The true damage would get that 12% bonus, and now it won't. But anyways, Aftershock's going to be King of the Hill. And whenever you immobilize a champion, you get 20 armor plus 30% of total armor, not bonus armor, total armor. And you get that bonus as bonus armor. And then you get the same amount for magic resist for 2.5 seconds. And then after the 2.5 seconds, you deal a lot of bonus damage to nearby enemies. I mean, 3.5% of your total health with this build, you're going to have somewhere around, 800, 900. And then level 3, when you go all in, you're going to have like 1,000 health. So at level 3, it's going to deal 52 plus 35. That's 87 damage off of this. Area of effect to everybody. That's a lot. Considering your passive that we just talked about at level 3, I forgot what it was, like 150 damage or something. Plus this, you're dealing like 250 damage off of just your rune and your passive as Leona. That's like a third of their health just off of passive damage. Like not even your skills or ignite. So that's really, really strong. And this 30% armor is massive. I'm not sure if I did the... Yes. Okay, so it scales off your total armor and magic resist, and this stacks with Leona's W. Because it counts as bonus armor and magic resist. So, whenever you turn on your W, and I think you can do it either way and it'll give you the same benefit. 20% of your bonus. No, I think you need, ideally you would want to do your Aftershock proc first, and then I think that would give you better results. If you do your you use your E, you get the Aftershock trigger, and then that gives you the bonus armor, and then that gives you the scaling. So basically what it comes down to, and I didn't math this out, but you can kind of do this on your own to figure it out. If you press W first, it gives you the 25 plus the 20% bonus. You're not going to have the Aftershock bonus when that first applies, though. Unless it's persistent. I don't think so, though. So basically, if you cast Eclipse, you get that 25 bonus armor, and the 25 bonus armor, you get 25, whatever percentage of that. Oh, here we go. You get 30% of that 25 as bonus armor. So that's like 7.5. So it'd be 27.5 bonus armor. if you use your W first and then proc Aftershock. If you proc Aftershock first, then you're going to get 20 plus 30% of your armor. And you start off with 47, so we'll just say 50 for an easy number around level, 2 or 3. That would give you 15, 35 bonus armor, and then you would get 20% of that bonus armor, so that'd be an extra 7. So that'd be 35 plus 7 is 42, plus 25 is 67, plus your natural 50 around level 2. So around level 2, if you all in somebody with like Eclipse plus your E, you usually want to wait till level 3, but you're going to get over 100 armor. You're going to get, what is her armor at level 3? 52. Okay, so that's close. So you just add on like 3. You're going to get 120 armor at level 3 when you all in. So that's the moral of the story. If you do it the other way around, you might get a little bit less. If you proc W first and then your E, whatever, you're going to have over 100 armor. It's going to be massive. And then you're going to be dealing at level 3, the 52 plus 35 is what, 87 damage to both people. And that's important to keep in mind. When I first thought about Leona, I thought Electrocute, right? So if you look at the Domination tree and Electrocute, at level 3, this does 70. When you proc with all 3, it does 70 to one person. It doesn't give you any armor or magic resist. It only affects one person, and it's on a 50-second cooldown, right? But with this, it deals 87 damage. It's on a 20-second cooldown, and it's part of a combo that gives you over 100 armor and magic resist. That's disgusting. Like that, and it hits both people. So it can deal, up to 174 damage at level 3. That's pretty nutty. So that's the main reason that Leona is really strong right now, is her W combines really well with Aftershock, and the fact that she itemizes a lot of health early on, especially if you go Ruby Sightstone early, gives her just a ton of damage, a ton of survivability, and really strong engage potential, which you talked about earlier with her E. It's very hard to, because you can't hide behind minions, it's very hard to avoid that against a decent Leona player. So that is the backbone of Leona. Aftershock is obscenely strong. It does more damage, a lot more damage than Electrocute. It's on a lower cooldown, and it gives you a ton of tankiness. So there's really no other option. You have to take this. I have seen some people talk about press the attack. No. I talk about it down here a little bit. You can go press the attack if you want to. I guess I can talk about it right now. I've had people say, have you tried press the attack, Leona? Here's the deal. Yeah, you get 12% extra damage. Everybody gets it. Obviously, press the attack is super powerful. But you have to attack them 3 times. So when you go in, you auto Q. I guess you can auto Q auto and probably get it off. And it does make them vulnerable. 12% increased damage from all sources. Oh, it says except true damage. Okay, so that's not going to affect Vayne anyways. I was thinking maybe that's why people were playing Vayne. It's got to be just because of the new skin, pretty much. Okay, so hey, thanks for the sub, I appreciate it. So the deal is almost every 80 carry is going to run press the attack already. So if you have someone like a Jhin on your team that or a Misfortune that they're going to run Comet or something instead of press the attack, then maybe you could consider this build. I mean, you could go press the attack plus Triumph plus maybe Tenacity and Coup de Grace. It's not awful, but you're going to be a lot less tanky, and you're going to be a lot more susceptible to range harassment. So it's a decent build if you know 100% that they are not going to go press the attack. Because if you have a Vayne on your team or something and you go press the attack and then Vayne goes press the attack, it's going to be pretty worthless because this doesn't stack. Like, you're going to get that extra damage, that 30 to 120 damage, but it's not going to be worth it because Aftershock's going to give you so much more. I don't think any of the mainstream Leonas do that. But, like, a place where you might want to do it, once again, is if you have a Comet AD carry, so Misfortune Jin, primarily, who you know they're not going to run Press the Attack, or maybe Ezreal, because you know he's going to run Kleptomancy. The problem is you don't have visibility. You don't know what your AD carry is going to run in solo queue. So you're not, with most AD carries, you're not going to know if they're going to run Press the Attack or not. So that's kind of the issue there, is you don't know if they're going to do it. And you're going to lose out on the flat health as well if you run Press the Attack. You're going to get attack speed, which doesn't matter. So you're going to lose the 135 or 120 or however much HP that you get for going in the Resolve tree. So you're losing Aftershock, which is a ton of tankiness, and you're losing the HP off of that. You can still go into this tree and get something like Conditioning plus Second Wind, but if you do that, you're losing Ingenious. If you go Domination for Ingenious, then you can get poked out because you're not going to have Second Wind. So it just depends. Obviously, it's very aggressive. It does do a lot of damage. It will combo well with Jet or Misfortune early on. So it's situational. That's what I'll say. If you have Jen or Misfortune and you really think you can abuse them early on, you can go, Press the Attack against someone like Sona. The problem is, if you're against something like a Sona or a Nami or a Lulu or just something really squishy anyways, you're already going to have enough damage. Like, if you hook them, they're dead against Jen or Misfortune. So you don't get any style points for overkilling them with Press the Attack, which I feel like that's what it would do. It would just overkill them. And if you're against a tank, they're going to be so tanky anyways because of Aftershock. Your Press the Attack is not going to matter that much, probably, in terms of a kill. So it does offer potentially a little bit more damage for extended trades with Press the Attack if you have a Comet user. But I think you're just sacrificing too much tankiness. Like, it's not really going to do a ton later in the game. I mean, maybe. If you don't have any Press the Attack users, like, on your team, like, yeah, that can be pretty good against taking down enemy tanks later on. So that can help you kill the Sejuani or the Gragas or the Cho'Gath, if your team just needs that Press the Attack debuff. So there are situations. There are situations for Press the Attack Leona. I would just say, if you're not sure, just default to going Aftershock Leona. It's going to be better probably 80% of the time. Okay, because you're going to have enough damage to kill them anyways against squishies in lane. Against tanks, I don't think it's going to be enough of a difference to melt through those tanks like Braum or Tahm Kench or something like that. So the Press the Attack version is okay. I always have people ask me about it. It's okay. But, you need to know that your AD carry is not going to run it, and you need to know that it's going to make enough of a difference in terms of damage. Which, like I said, against super tanks, no. Against squishies, you're just going to overkill them with it. But there might be some medium-level champions that'll have, like maybe Rakan or something, who's going to have a little bit of tankiness, like a little bit of resilience. And Press the Attack might just give you enough damage to kill him. I don't know. But I would go Aftershock most of the time. Okay, Font of Life is okay. Now in the client, it says that Font of Life, it heals you the 1% over 2 seconds. But here it says it's instantly, and I've had people tell me on stream that they think it is instant healing. Okay, so it's 5 plus 1% every auto attack. So they've told me that it's not over 2 seconds like the old Stoneborn Pact, that it is instant. Now, I don't know, but I would get it either way just because the other runes are pretty awful in this tree. Like, Unflinching is okay, and I've had people defend Unflinching. If you cast a summoner spell, you get some extra tenacity, which is okay. And then every time something's on cooldown, you get slow resist and tenacity. So you get 10% tenacity and slow resist most of the time if your Ignite's on cooldown. If your Flash is on cooldown, you get 20-20. pretty decent. It's like having some little oh, it stacks multiplicatively with itself. Okay, so that's not as good. That'd give you 19% instead of 20%, but whatever. It's okay. It's okay. I mean, it just gives... The thing is, Leona, like, her whole thing is she goes in, she blows all of her cooldowns, and that's it. So she doesn't need to, like, run around and do anything extra most of the time. You just go in, pop all your stuff, and either they die or they don't, and you die. Pretty much. So she doesn't need unflinching as some other champions that just want to persistently stay in there and keep casting things. So it's okay on her, but it's not as good on her as it would be on other people. However, this 1% healing is really nice. So basically, and it's 5 base and 1%. So when you get to 1,000 HP around level 3 or so, that's 15 healing per hit. That's equivalent to 15% lifesteal if your AD carry has 100 AD, which is pretty standard in a lot of cases because a lot of AD carries aren't going to itemize for AD as much anymore. They're either going to be building Blade the Ruined King, Trinity Force, or like attack speed, like Infinity Edge, and then a lot of attack speed stuff like Static Shiv, Rapid Fire Cannon, stuff like that, which don't have AD on it. So it's okay. So 15% lifesteal at 100 AD, and then it's 19% if you have 100 AD versus 50 armor, because lifesteal only triggers on the total damage dealt, I believe. It doesn't count unmitigated damage. So if they have a lot of armor, you're going to be lifestealing a lot less. So it's actually up to 19% lifesteal if they have 50 armor. You know, if you have more AD than that, it's going to go down a little bit. So, you know, I think if you have around 150 AD or something like that after you complete your Infinity Edge, it might only be worth like 12% lifesteal or something. But that's still pretty good. I mean, especially considering a lot of AD carries aren't going to itemize for lifesteal in this meta, except for Bork users like Callista. Whether in King users, that is. So it's okay. It adds pretty nice lifesteal. And that affects everyone on your team. So if you have a lot of champions that are like auto-attacking people, then they all get that lifesteal. So it does add up over time. It's decent. It's not amazing, but I think it's better than Unflinching and Demolition most of the time. We got to pick it up. Second Wind, also pretty good. It negates a lot of Harass. And this is one of the major reasons people have asked me, well, why don't we see more Lulu? What about Karma? Everyone was thinking Karma is going to be really good in the preseason because Ulti Hat ostensibly has really good interactions with her ultimate because it's on such a low cooldown. This is one of the major problems with Karma, though, is Second Wind. And what this rune does is every time you get dealt damage, you heal for 6 plus 4% of your missing health over 10 seconds. So it's like a little mini Doran's shield. And remember, Leona's going to have a lot of health early on because she's going to get that extra 130 from just taking the Resolve tree. Yeah. And then oftentimes she will rush Sightstone very early, or at least Ruby Crystal very early. So that's going to give her an extra 150. And she just naturally has a lot of bonus health. So you're going to have a lot of health to begin with. And so it's not uncommon if you're a Leona to be missing like 200 health and still be okay in lane. And if you are missing 200 health, that's 1.4 health per second regeneration from this ability. So I redid the math there. I was going to do it on a 3-minute basis, but I just ended up doing it on just a 1-minute basis. So that means if you're getting 1.4 health per second, that's equivalent to 84 HP per minute if you're missing 200 health. And that's about a 224 gold value per minute in lane. So it's not exactly the same because 224 assumes the 2.66 value of flat health. And this is not going to help you in an all-in, right? So if you just go all-in and it's just a fight to the death, this isn't the same as flat health, so it's not as good of a stat. But just to kind of help you sort of evaluate this, I mean, maybe like Rejuve Bead would have been a better... I mean, let me compare it to Rejuve Bead really quick. I'm not going to redo the math there, but... 50% base regen. Okay, what's her base regen? At level 3, sure. 9.6 8, and that's per 5. Okay, 0.968. And this was giving us 1.24. Or this is giving us 1.4. Okay, so let's do 1400. Okay, 968. Okay, so this is about a 217 gold value then. Okay, so that's not that far off from what I had here in general. But it can be more than that. So it's about equal to 50% more than a rejuve bead. Give or take, not quite the same, but like 40% more than a rejuve bead. And that's if you're missing 200 health. If you're missing 300 health, then it goes up even more. If you're missing like half your health, it goes up even more. So obviously if you're full health, it's going to be less. So there's a lot of variability to this, but the best way to think of it is it's somewhere between 1 to 2 rejuve beads most of the time. So it's somewhere between 150 to 300 gold, which is a really nice early game value. And so what that means is when you're constantly getting hit and poked by Nami, Sona, Karma, Lulu, even Zyra, if Zyra doesn't all-in you, if she just pokes you mildly with like Q-plants, you're going to heal a lot of that back in lane. So, 84 HP per minute. If you're in lane for 5 minutes, that's going to give you like 520 or 420 extra health. It's huge. It's like you're getting 50% more health during the laning phase. So that's a really, really big deal, especially when you consider Targon's Brace, the upgrade from Relic Shield, which is something you rush pretty early. That's a lot of regeneration. So it's just, and Lulu, or Leona's just going to have a lot of like resistances early on anyways. So it's just really, really hard to crack these champions like Leona, Alistar, even Blitzcrank. Like it's very, very hard to harass these champions if they're going second wind, plus Targon's. Taric. I mean, Taric has a heal and a shield too, so you're definitely not pushing Taric out of lane. But this is the big reason why Karma has largely flopped during the preseason, is because she's very heavily reliant on early game poke and harassment. Her scaling is just not, it's not nearly as good as someone like Taric, or Janna, really. Now Sona's getting a lot of nerfs next patch, and I mean that's kind of a different topic, but Sona's going to be pushed way out of the meta. This is something that I've struggled with as Sona, though. I've tried to play Sona, and it's been really hard in the preseason because you're very squishy. If Leona ever catches you with an E, you're dead, and it's just really hard to harass people out. And 80 carries can still take door and shield. And so it's just really hard as a light harassed champion to make any meaningful progress if you don't all-in somebody in lane right now. And second wind's a big part of it. So that's why you always want to take second wind on tanks whenever possible. It's just very, very efficient. Okay, let's talk about Ingenious plus Zombie Ward, and then we'll move on from there. Okay, so I think this is the best combination for most supports that are not AP supports. For a couple of reasons. So let's go ahead and just look at these runes. And I think you want to take these together as a package most of the time. Okay, so Zombie Ward is pretty straightforward. Whenever you kill a ward, you get another ward. It's like a blue ward. It has a much bigger vision range than the blue ward, and it lasts for 3 minutes instead of 1 minute. So it gives you really nice vision. And a key here also is whenever one of your wards times out, if they don't clear it, but it just naturally times out, you get a Zombie Ward. So this turns your 1 minute trinkets into very powerful vision control for the early to mid game. So if you drop your early 1 minute trinket there, a lot of people won't even look in this bush early. And so when it times out at 1 minute, you get to keep this for 3 more minutes. That's 4 minutes of upper river vision, which is massive. Because especially if you're on blue side, a really cheeky way that a lot of junglers like to try to get you is they will wrap around here, run through your jungle, and then wrap around and get you in the lane. And this almost always works. It doesn't always work, but it's a very efficient route because in solo queue, a lot of times the mid laner just will not use their trinket ward, or they'll use really shallow wards. Like they might put a ward here that won't see if they wrap all the way through here. Or they might even just put their ward on this side of the river. Like they do not ward properly in middle lane early, and your jungler's not going to be warding properly either to help you with this most of the time. Now you might be able to communicate and get them to do it, but it's just been a real pain in the butt a lot of times in solo queue. And I mean, the only way to counter that is just don't ever leave your tower, because a lot of times you're not going to be able to leave at level 3 or 4 to walk all the way up river to keep replacing this. And even if you do, you can only put one up. It only lasts for a minute, has a 3-minute cooldown, so you just can't keep vision of this top river early until you get a Sightstone. Well, now you can. Early on, you can just drop a ward here. It'll check for invades, but then also, once it times out, you get an extra 3 minutes of zombie ward. So that's very, very powerful to shut off this really annoying route that people will take going this way. So especially on blue side, it's helpful. But even on red side, it's really nice, because then you can keep an eye on dragon early. You know, a very common tactic is with someone like a Shyvana, a Warwick, maybe even a Master Yi. They'll be able to pop over using this blast plant and try to do the dragon like really quickly before you have a Sightstone, and that's super frustrating as a support. So this allows you to keep track of that more. So you can put your ward here. If you want to, you can even, if you're really scared of the dragon, you can even put it like in the pit here, like in this corner. You won't get vision of the river, but when it zombies, it'll keep an eye on this for 3 minutes, which is really nice. So yes, they can come and clear it out, but at least you're going to know where they are, and they're not going to be able to sneak that dragon without first clearing it. So that's really, really nice early on. And then later, every time you sweep a ward, you get a free zombie ward, and the zombie ward doesn't count against your current wards. So if you run in here, and let's say that you sweep this, there's a ward, you get a zombie ward. You pink this, there's a ward, you get a zombie ward. You get to place one of your normal wards here, place a normal ward here, go over here, replace your pink from here over to here, find another ward, get a zombie ward, and then you can go over and place your third ward like here. Then all of a sudden you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 wards on the map at the same time, because 3 of them are zombie wards. Which that's double ward capacity. So if you run zombie ward and you are able to successfully sweep and control ward away a lot of their wards, you can get easily in excess of like 80 wards a game, which is massive, massive vision control. And so zombie ward is excellent whenever you clear vision. Very, very powerful. So yes, they can clear it in one shot, but 3 minutes is a very long time for a free ward to last, and they actually have to go find the wards and clear them, because a lot of times your zombie wards are going to be in bushes, because that's where most people ward. And even if they do clear it, like even if you clear a ward here and get a free zombie ward, you're still going to see where they are when they go clear it. So you get an easy glimpse of vision. So that's super helpful. So zombie ward, very, very nice on support. And then Ingenious Hunter is an excellent combo with this. So what Ingenious Hunter does is item actives are naturally reduced by 10%, and then every time you get a kill or an assist, then you get 6 extra percent. So if you get a kill and an assist on everyone on the enemy team, 5, which after one big team fight, you're probably going to have that, then you'll get 30% plus 10%. And then that's 40%. And then if you get Ruby Sightstone, you get up to 60% cooldown on actives. That includes trinkets, and that's very key to mention. It's something that a lot of people overlook, and I think that's something that a lot of supports just aren't really recognizing the power of right now, especially when combined with zombie wards. So your Oracle Lens has a 76 base cooldown. If you get 60% cooldown on that, it goes down to a 30-second CD. Whenever you sweep, it lasts for 10 seconds. So you activate the sweep. The cooldown starts once you start your sweep, not once the sweep ends. So once you start your sweep, you have 10 seconds where you can walk around, find a bunch of wards. Anything you find is going to turn into a zombie ward. And then once your sweep finishes, it goes on a 20-second cooldown. After 20 seconds, you can sweep again for 10 more seconds. So you can literally have your Oracle Lens sweeping for like 1/3 of the game once you get this, just almost constantly on. And it makes it impossible for them to keep any kind of vision control on you at all in the mid game. So they're just never going to have vision. It just completely blacks them out, as long as you have the map pressure to go in there and sweep. So it's extremely powerful to do this. Even with this interaction, just more sweep plus more zombie ward gives you just massive control. Even if you are overwarding a bush, so you put a control ward down, you get a zombie ward, that still is an extra hit they're going to have to do to clear all that out, right? So instead of, you know, taking 3 hits to clear away a ward, it's now going to take a 4th hit to clear away all the vision out of that bush. So yeah, zombie ward in a bush with a control ward is redundant vision, but it still is going to require them 1 more auto attack to clear all that out, which could be enough time for your team to catch the support and kill them if they're trying to clear it. So very, very powerful interaction. So it gives you more clears, gives you more zombie wards, and it also synergizes with a lot of items. So we'll talk about that with the items here in the last part of the segment, which I've gone over an hour. We'll try to keep it on an hour 15. Is it brings Locket of the Iron Solari down to 36 seconds. Really strong. That's like every time a minion wave comes down the lane, just about, you're going to have another Locket proc. Knight's Vow goes to 36 seconds. Face of the Mountain goes to 24 seconds. So Knight's Vow, you know, you wouldn't think the cooldown matters that much, but it does, because whenever you put the Knight's Vow on somebody, then that you can't put it on somebody else for 90 seconds. So let's say you run around with your jungler, and you gank somebody around Baron area, a fight breaks out, you're like, okay, I'm just going to put the Knight's Vow on the jungler just to help us with this fight. Boom, we get it. And then that person, under normal circumstances, is down for, I think, a minute and a half. Under normal circumstances, when that person spawns, they're going to have another, you know, minute or so when they could attack you and force a team fight, and you're not going to be able to put that Knight's Vow back on your AD carry or on a different target. It's just going to be on cooldown. So you're just going to have to deal with that. So that makes you a little reluctant to take it off your AD carry, even if you're not near your AD carry. So historically, even if this fight broke out here, you wouldn't necessarily want to switch your Knight's Vow over to your jungler. I mean, what if you don't even kill him? Like, what if you're trying to kill him, you drop the Knight's Vow on him, and then they just get away? Thresh Lantern, they flash a wall, something like that, right? Then your Knight's Vow is on the jungler, which is okay, but you're not going to be able to put it back on a squishy target like your Talia or your AD carry. And so it really kind of made you hesitant to apply that Knight's Vow to people that weren't your squishy priority targets. Well, now you can, because you're just going to be able to reapply it in, you know, 30 seconds and change. 36 seconds. So now you can use that much more liberally, and that just helps you with skirmishes a lot. So now you can just put it on anybody who's involved in a fight in a skirmish and just replace it later. So that's actually quite nice with Knight's Vow. And then Face of the Mountain goes down to 24 seconds. I'm not a huge fan of that item. I don't think the shield is big enough, and I don't think it justifies the cost. But it's an okay item. It's okay. But it does bring the Face of the Mountain down to 24 second cooldown, which is really nice. And then if you ever get something like a Righteous Glory or something like that, it'll lower the cooldown. So there's a lot of really good interactions with Ruby Sightstone. So you get the Sweeper, and then Locket and Knight's Vow are almost always core buys on Leona. And so that's really, really nice. So it gives, and Ruby Sightstones we'll talk about here in a second. It's really mana or cost efficient. It's 500 HP early on, which is massive. So that scales with your Aftershock to give you more damage, and it scales with your armor and HP to give you a much larger effective health pool. And it is 20% cost efficient. I had someone on stream ask me last night, well, why would you rush Ruby Sightstone first on some champions? And the reason is, it's just very, very efficient. If you're going to get it anyways, you're not really losing that much to buy it early. It's 116% efficient. So upgrading from Sightstone into Ruby Sightstone, you get 116% payback on your gold. So you're basically getting 800 health. You're not getting 800 health. You're getting 150. So you're getting 250 health. And then that's a 2.66 gold per health. I think it's 798. Right? What am I missing? 500 health. 150. 350. Math is hard. So 350 times 2.66. Okay, so you're getting 931 health. Okay, so it's even more efficient than I thought it was. I don't know where I got that. Maybe I thought it was only you were getting 300 health. I think that's what it was. I thought it was 300. Yeah, 795. Okay, so I thought that Sightstone gave you 200 health for some reason when I was just doing this, doing these calculations late night. So it's even better than I thought it was. It's even better than I thought it was. So you're getting 116% gold efficiency. So you're just getting a lot of free health to get this. It gives you a 4th ward, which is really powerful, and it reduces the cooldown on your trinket. So once again, that's going to give you more zombie wards, more vision. More vision means you get to pick them off and kill them more, snowball harder. You can contest objectives better, especially as Leona. Remember how important vision is. You can dive towers and kill people bottom. There's just so many things you can. It protects you from ganks. There's so many uses of vision that are so important that having that 4th ward plus additional sweeper capacity is just massive. And you get that free extra health. So it's just huge. It's a win-win-win if you get Ruby Sightstone. So don't get too caught up on the fact, well, I don't have any like activatable items, so it's a waste of this. Just think of this as a latent ability that just scales better as the item goes on. So just don't even calculate this other than for the trinket, right? Like, who cares? Just think of it as health, extra ward, extra sweep, extra zombie. That's all you need to know. Very powerful rush item. So, yes, you don't have a lot of active items yet, but it doesn't need to have that to be effective. Later on, obviously, it's better. It gets better as you get Locket, as you get Knight's Vow, but it's still worthwhile to buy it early. Okay? You need a 4-ward item early. So if you want to get Locket before you get Ruby, that's fine, but I wouldn't go much further than that. I would definitely get Ruby pretty early because it complements your overall game plan, right, of vision domination. That's really a core element of this build, is vision domination. Okay. So other items that are useful. Obviously, Targon's. It gives you healing in lane, gives you health. It helps your AD carry sustain. It gives you that shield in the mid game once you get to 650. So it's just the go-to. You always get Targon's. It's up to you. I would not upgrade to face until after you get Ruby Locket and then Knight's Vow, probably. I would just get face late game if you want to complete that. Ninja Tabi, super powerful. It complements your ability to tower dive. Armor is extremely strong right now. There are a lot of AD threats out there. Kha'Zix is really popular. Zed, Kayn, Riven. You know, there's just so much AD out there right now that Ninja Tabi is just always a good choice, pretty much. And you're just going to be taking a lot of hits as Leona. You know, you're going to go in. You're not going to be able to escape. You're going to be taking a lot of hits. So Ninja Tabi is excellent. The 10% reduction on hit also scales really nice with armor. So that's really nice. And not Soraka. I recommended those boots for Soraka also. There we go. So yeah, Ninja Tabi I think are the go-to. You can get Mercury Treads if you're up against like a Vhagar or a Malzahar or just something else that's going to have a lot of crowd control. That could be useful. But most of the time, I wouldn't worry about it. You're going to be so tanky anyways. I don't think they're going to kill you while you're crowd controlled most of the time. And it's just it's much better to have the dive potential and to be able to tank Baron early or tank Dragon early. And so I would just prefer Ninja Tabi. I think those are just the most overpowered boot right now, and they have been for a long time, especially on tanks. Ionian boots are another option if you really want lower cooldowns. Cooldown reduction is difficult to get for tanks. Leona doesn't care that much about cooldown reduction because you're really an all-in burst champion anyways. You just want to go in, blow all your cooldowns, and kill somebody. So she's not like a persistent threat kind of tank. So, you know, cooldown reduction doesn't matter as much. It's obviously a really nice stat, but I don't think that it's worth sacrificing the armor and the on-hit reduction from Ninja Tabi. I would just almost always get Tabi. Okay, Ruby, we talked about that. Now, Locket is something that you don't usually have to convince a lot of people of. This has almost historically always been a super powerful item, and there's no exception right now. Now, this goes down to a 36-second Locket. So in some fights that go on for a very long time, these different skirmishes, you could proc this twice in some fights. So it's really, really nice. You can use it a lot more liberally. You don't have to be afraid that if you use it, you may not have the cooldown for a key objective fight later. You're going to have it. So you can use it in your team fight, and then your team can still go contest Baron. And if the remaining players want to come and fight you for it, you should have your Locket back up by the time they get there. So it's really, really nice. And it has a 302 base shield. So if we look at Locket at level 12, yeah, a 302 base shield. And then by that time, it's of the caster's bonus health. So this isn't your total health. That's important to note. It's not your total health. It is your bonus health. But still, at level 12 is 24% of your bonus health. So if you have Ruby Sightstone plus Targons, plus the bonus health that you get off of your passive, that's what, 135? I don't remember how much Targons gives. Let me see. 175. So you have 810. Now, Knight's Vow will give you even more down the line, but we'll just assume you get this like third item. So 195, say, plus, was it the 302 base? Means everybody's going to be getting about a 500 shield off a Locket. If you get this as like your first, you get this as your first big item after Targons and Ruby Sightstone. That's at around level 12. That's pretty massive. I mean, even lower than that, it's, you know, if you like level 9 or something, it's still going to be 18% with a 236 base. So it's still going to be really nice. It's going to be like a 400 to 500 shield. That's really, really strong on everybody on a 36-second cooldown. And has okay base stats. Not amazing. Not amazing. So basically, you're paying 600 gold for that active, 500 gold for that active. But really, really strong for 36 seconds. So it's going to be very, very little downtime on that. So that's really strong. Now, another item that's kind of odd. Face of the Mountain, I talked about that. It's obvious. You always get Face of the Mountain on tanks. Virtually all, or not Face of the Mountain, Knight's Vow. Very, very strong. Still very cost efficient. So I didn't really talk about that here because that one's pretty obvious. And remember that the cooldown or the item cooldown is very nice on that because that lets you switch targets more often, which is very good in kind of the skirmishing meta that we're in. Now, Redemption is one that a lot of people may not think of right away because, you know, you might think, well, it doesn't offer a lot of tank stats, which is true. And she doesn't have any healing or shielding in her kit. So that's goofy. True. That is goofy. But it does scale with Locket, so the extra healing and shielding does scale with Locket, and it scales with itself. So it gets the triple, it gets the plus 30% healing and shielding off of that. And if you get Face of the Mountain, your shield off of Face scales with the plus healing and shielding as well. So the 10% healing and shielding is okay. It's not amazing. It does give you some mana regen, which is something that Leona definitely lacks early on. And it goes to a 48-second cooldown with Ruby. So that means that, you know, less than every minute, you can do a fight where you lock at somebody for, I mean, let's just go look at Redemption. So you're locketing them for 400 to 500 most of the time. If we look at Redemption, if your target's level is level 9, it's going to be 190. It says 2.5 times. It says it's 3 times in the client, though. I'm pretty sure. So you're going to get 190. A 250 heal. So not amazing. Not amazing. A 250 heal, but still, if you're hitting a few different people, it could be useful. It only has 200 health, so it's situational. But if you have a big-time teamfight comp, like you have a Kennen or an Amumu or like a Misfortune, something like that, this might still be worth considering, especially if you're already really tanky. If you're really far ahead of the enemy team and they just don't deal a lot of damage to you, it could be decent. There are probably better choices out there, but it does give you some semi-global effects as well. So you have 550 range. You can influence fights from far away. It does deal up to 10% maximum health true damage to enemies. So that's pretty decent. I mean, if somebody has 2,000 health, you're doing 200 true damage to them in a fight. So if you're going to be team fighting a lot, it might be worth considering just because it has such great synergy. It gives you, don't forget, it gives you 10% extra shielding on the Locket and 10% off of face. So it's okay. It's okay. I think most of the time, you know, you would probably rather just get Locket, Knight's Vow, Zeke's Convergence. Zeke's Convergence is another one. I didn't do the math on here. But it's just a good standard item. You need one mana item with Leona because she can run out of mana if she does so many like rotations of her spells. So just having one mana item, even 250 mana, is just a really, really nice boon for her, especially if you don't have a Water Drake. And its stats are decent, right? So it pays for itself. It's 100% efficient. And then you get this active. It gives you, it allows you to stick to people with your Froststorm, which is nice. It helps you proc your, or make sure that you get the damage off your Aftershocks. They don't run away because you're sticking to them. Helps your allies stick to them a little bit better. Then it does 50% magic damage over 2 seconds, which is 20. Basically, it comes down to 25% bonus magic damage on hit for your AD carry. Now, I don't think that crits will give you more. I'm not sure about that. They might. But it pretty much gives your AD carry a lot of extra bonus damage on their auto attack. So if your AD carry is really fed, this is a nice item. So you have like that 5-0 Vayne. You have the... usually auto attackers are better, like Twitch, Vayne, Tristana. It's okay on Misfortune, but she's not going to be auto attacking as much. Or like Varus. He will be auto attacking a lot, but... you know, just really fed AD carry that auto attacks a lot. Ezreal, it's not going to be as good on because he usually just Qs people a lot. He doesn't auto too much. At least not as much as other AD carries. But anyways, AD carry fed, you need mana, good item. It also lowers the cooldown on that, but this is going to be gated by your ultimate cooldown anyway. So yes, this will go down to like 20-second cooldown, but you know, your ultimate's probably going to be at least on a 50-second cooldown if you have a lot of CDR. So it's just a nice stat stick item. It gives you some just decent base stats, nice cooldown reduction, nice mana, which is helpful, and then has a very helpful active. So is it objectively as powerful as Knight's Vow or Locket in a lot of situations? Probably not, but it is nice to have the mana. At least get a Glacial Shroud and think about it. And off of Glacial, you can go for something like an Iceborne Gauntlet. It's more expensive. It will give you more damage. It will give you more CDR. It's okay. This might be an option if your team lacks damage, if your AD carry is just not doing so hot. You just want a little bit of extra sticking power, that can be decent. Banner of Command's pretty trash. I talk about it down here. Health regen is a really bad stat outside of lane. You're already going to have enough with Second Wind and Targon's in lane. You don't need a lot more. It doesn't offer any mana on it, which is important. It used to, but it doesn't anymore. And it just doesn't push towers as fast. I mean, it's okay, but a split pusher will take care of it really quickly, and it just doesn't provide enough lane pressure, I don't think, to really matter that much. It is nice that it goes down to like a 36-second cooldown. I just don't think it does enough. I haven't played with it a lot, so I'm not sure, but with the current iteration of it, but I think that it's just really lackluster. ZZ'Rot Portal is a little more interesting, and this is just about the end of the video. If you look at ZZ'Rot here really quickly... Sorry, my wife just sent me a text. Just need to make sure. Okay. This item, I love this item in Season 6. This was a core item. This is a major reason why I got to Diamond in Season 6. That was a big part of it. I was one of the only people that used this back when it was good, before they nerfed the crap out of it. But now, it's okay. So the problem with ZZ'Rot is it doesn't have a lot of range. These days, it used to be able to drop a ZZ'Rot like right here, and it would threaten this tower because the monsters lasted a lot longer, and it could actively push through minion waves a lot faster. So you could just leave it by itself. You could leave it here, and it would threaten that tower. So you could leave it in all these places that were pretty far away from the tower, and it would draw people out of the tower to try to go clear it, and you could just kill them in a bush. So I would do this a lot with like Tahm Kench or Alistar or Nautilus or just whatever. I would just wait with the jungler in these bushes and just bait them out. Or you could drop it and then go pressure Baron, and then when someone goes down here to clear this and they don't have teleport, like the AD carries down here, and they're clearing this, you get vision of them, you do Baron. It's nice. Or you can just like threaten Baron and then drop a ZZ'Rot on this side over here and pressure the lane with it. And then when they go to try to clear this up, then you can do Baron really quickly. So there are just a lot of utility capabilities with that, but they nerfed the range a lot. So now, really, it has to be very close. Like, it has to be probably like, I don't even know if it reaches from this bush to the tower anymore. It's very, very close before the minions time out. And they don't push waves nearly as fast or nearly as well because as they're sitting there, I don't remember exactly how long they stay on the field. It's for something like 5 to 7 seconds before they time out. So they don't cut through the minion wave nearly as fast as they used to. So they're good at like dealing damage to towers. They deal more damage to towers when they actually hit the towers, but they don't push the lane as fast. They don't cut through the minions as fast, and they don't have the same kind of range they used to. So that's been a big problem, and why you just really haven't seen that item on anybody except for maybe Udyr or Singed. Champions who like really hardcore split push and are very mobile. It does give you extra mobility around towers, which is really nice. That complements the Udyr Singed style of play. It has decent tank stats. It's okay, you know. It's 2,700 gold, and it gives you 2,500 gold worth of stats. Once again, the health base regen is not amazing. It's okay. Extra movement speed's pretty good. So if you're around a tower, you're getting about 121 gold worth of stats. So that's nice. But obviously, with Ingenious Hunter plus Ruby Sightstone, this cooldown goes down to 36 seconds. So that's really, really nice. Now, it even says right here that you can't have 3 of them up. I don't remember where it says that, but I read that somewhere, that you cannot have 3 of them up. If you make a 3rd one, then it will despawn the 2nd one. So in theory, yes, you could get like a 3rd one up for like, I don't know, 15 seconds or something like that, but it won't let you do it. So this means that you can liberally use this a lot more, very similar to Locket or Face of the Mountain or whatever. You can just be a lot more liberal with this. So you can just run around the map, you know, anytime you're sieging a tower, just drop it. Okay, your team wants to siege this, whatever, just drop it. Get a little bit of incremental damage on it, they spawn, you have to back up, okay, no big deal, just leave. Then it's going to be up again. Okay, you're over here like trying to siege this tower, drop it. Do a little bit more damage. Okay, next tower, drop it. So you don't have to be as strategic with it. You don't have to try to protect it as much. You can just drop it in there, even if it just does a few hundred extra damage to a tower. Over time, that adds up. You can still put it in a side lane, and it will push. Not as well as it used to, but it will. And, you know, if they don't clear it, then it'll keep applying pressure, and you can go put another one in another side lane now. So it's a lot better with a lot lower cooldown, because you can just use it to help you with the siege anytime you want. The problem with the item, though, and this has always been a problem with it, is it lacks CDR and it lacks health. So tanks already have a CDR problem right now because Locket doesn't give CDR and Ruby Sightstone doesn't give CDR, and those two are very, very powerful items, and this doesn't either. Now, Leona doesn't need the CDR as much, that's helpful, and she has a problem sieging because she doesn't have any long-range abilities, so this does kind of shore up some of her weaknesses, but it's also 2,700 gold, so it's a lot more expensive than the other ones. And in combat, it's just not going to be as effective as Locket or Face of the Mountain. So yes, it gives you better siege, but you're getting that better siege at the cost of having a much weaker team fight. So if you're already, I would say the best time to get this is if you're already dominating hardcore and you just need help sieging to try to close out the game. You're up 20 kills, 15 kills, something like that, and you just need help cracking that mid tower because they just have that really annoying Ziggs or Orianna or whatever that just keeps wave clearing. This can help you out with that. So you could, you know, maybe go Ruby into Locket. You're dominating the game. Okay, they don't have a super fed assassin. You may not need Knight's Vow. Okay, let's go for ZZ'Rot Portal and try to clean up this game. So I think that's the best time to get it. So I think in some like very specific circumstances like that, you might want to get this. Alternatively, you could get it as like a 4th or like maybe a 5th or 6th item after you get Locket, Knight's Vow. Let's say your 80 carry is really far behind and you don't think Zeke's Convergence is really going to be worth it. You could get this instead to help you siege. Especially if you have an 80 carry that doesn't siege very well like Vayne, kind of a close range 80 carry, then this could be really good. So I think this is a lot more viable than it was. It obviously has a really cute interaction with Ingenious Hunter plus Ruby Sightstone, but I'm still not quite ready to recommend it as a top like rush item. But it does have good utility in cases where you really want that siege and you're okay with sacrificing team fight. So this one's actually, it's okay. It's okay. It's just, it's more expensive and you're giving up the team fight. and it just lacks really important stats like CDR and HP. Banner of Command I talked about. I don't think it's good. I think if you want push, just spend a little bit more and get the ZZ'Rot portal. It's just going to be a lot more effective at why you're buying the item. Because there's no reason to buy Banner of Command unless you want really good push, because it's not good in team fights either, so on and so forth. It doesn't give you the mana. It does give you CDR, but I don't know. I mean, Banner might be okay. I would just say if you want to go down that road, if you want the split push capability, just go with ZZ'Rot. I just feel like it's just going to do what you want better. If you want team fighting, then just go for Knight's Vow Locket. And so I just feel, and if your AD carry is really fed and you just want to play off your AD carry more, go Zeke's Convergence. So I just feel like there's just not, this is just kind of like an in-between item that's like sort of kind of okay in different areas, but just doesn't really specialize and give you anything like really reliable and solid that you want. So it's okay. I mean, you could go for a hardcore push if you're really far ahead. You could go ZZ and Banner of Command. Maybe that's an okay strategy, but I feel like this is one of the most niche, least picked items that I would recommend for Leona. Okay, and finally, hour and 30. Finally, matchups. I'm not going to go huge into this, but just the best matchups for Leona if you're against a squishy champion that doesn't have very good escapes. Sona, Nami, Karma, Misfortune, Ashe, Jinx. These are all great food for Leona. She has a harder time against things like Ezreal, Vayne, just anything that has pretty high mobility that can dodge her E or get out of her stuff very easily. Even Tristana to a lesser extent. She's not going to be as good against those. So she's better against the immobile squish champions. And she's best with someone who can follow up early, get kills, and snowball really hard with her. So Jhin, Dravid, Misfortune, Varus, Callista, these are all great picks with her. She's not going to be as great with someone that needs to scale more. So like Vayne, Twitch, Sivir, things like that don't have a lot of burst damage early. You can still pick her with those, but she's not going to be as good with those picks. Her worst matchups, Tahm Kench by far is the worst. That's one of the hardest counter picks in the whole game. If you ever try to engage, he's just going to eat his ally, and then you're done. You can hit Tahm Kench if you want instead. But typically how it goes, and I play this from the Tahm Kench side as well a lot of the time, is Leona, you press your E, you go in on the AD carry, Tahm Kench eats the AD carry, he auto-attacks you, spits out the AD carry behind him. After your E's done, he auto-attacks you again, and then you've got a choice. You're not escaping, because you've already used your mobility, your E. You can just hope that he doesn't kill you. If he auto-attacks you a third time and then stuns you with his tongue, you're probably going to have to flash. So it's just very, very hard. Pretty much you can't go in, like, ever on Tahm Kench. You're just sitting there farming it off with him, and it just comes down to which AD carry scales better at that point. Because he can't engage on your AD carry. You can't really engage on him. I would say he probably outscales Leona because of just his kit and his itemization and his like supreme mobility once he gets his ultimate. So he's probably going to outscale you in terms of utility, and it's just going to come down to does your AD carry outscale his AD carry. I mean, if you have like a Twitch or something on your team and he has like a Jhin on his team, then sure, you might be able to win with Leona still, but it's a very, very hard matchup. Usually what you want to do in that matchup if you're against Tahm Kench is just don't fight with him, just try to outfarm him, and just try to roam middle and make plays off of middle, because Tahm Kench can't engage and punish you as hard on your AD carry if they're paying attention, because he doesn't have any engage other than just hitting him with his tongue lash and walking at him. So like if they have a Talia or a Syndra or something kind of squishy, as soon as you hit level 6, just get vision control of the river, use that sweeper with the cooldown off of Ruby Sightstone early, get a lot of control wards, control vision of the river, rotate up there, and just try to continually use your ultimates to make picks in the mid lane, or coordinate with your jungler and try to make picks in the jungler. Just don't fight the Tahm Kench. Just go somewhere else and do something if you can, and let your AD carry know. Just say, hey, we can't fight Kench. I'm going to try to use my ult middle. Like, just communicate that with him. It sucks. It is a bad matchup. It feels real bad to be the Leona in that matchup, and there's not anything you can really do about it. You just have to try to fight places on the map where there's not Tahm Kench. In a team fight, you can kind of work around this. Let's say you engage on the AD carry on the back line with your E. Tahm Kench eats him. Then you can wait until Tom spits him out, or you can just like queue somebody else, like queue the mage instead of the AD carry, And then once he spits them back out, then you can ult them after he spits them out, and your team might be able to still engage and kill the AD carry. So you can work around it, but it's tough. Morgana's another one who's really annoying. If you go in with your E, she could black shield them to make sure you don't land your Q. So it's just really hard to stun lock anyone against the Morg. You can work around this in lane because Morgana herself is fairly squishy, unlike Tahm Kench. And so if you engage on the AD carry and then Morgana black shields them, then just switch over and kill the Morgana. Just Q, attack the Morgana, Igniter, and if your AD carry is running Triumph, which they probably will, you can probably still turn. So you can kill the Morg and then turn and kill the AD carry most likely. Your Q is going to be off cooldown again by the time you kill the Morg. And you could probably auto Q, auto, and then your AD carry should be able to finish him up. If your AD carry can't finish him up, you could probably kill him and at least get a 2-for-1. So Morg, you can work around. It's annoying, but you just E onto the AD carry and then target switch over to the Morg. Tell your AD carry that. Say, hey, target the Morg, go after the Jhin, and then switch to Morg. That's how you beat up Morg. Conversely, you can go on Morg with your E and then switch to the AD carry. You just go to the person, just E on, don't use your Q on them, but E onto somebody. When Morg black shields them, use your Q on the person that she doesn't black shield. Thresh is another tough matchup. I mentioned this before, I think, but it's a big skill matchup. It depends on how fast he flays back your E, if he can do that at all. At lower elos, they probably won't be able to do that, so Leona probably bulldozes Thresh, you know, below Diamond, but then as you get into Platinum and Diamond, the Thresh will be able to flay back those E's a lot, and it makes it a lot harder. So he's going to flay you back, and then probably hook you, and potentially ult you, and ignite and all in you, if he's level 6. So you don't have your mobility anymore once he flays back your E, and so you're just kind of a sitting duck. And if he wants to hook you and have an extended trade, it can be very difficult to trade back. So Thresh is a pretty tough matchup, but that's much more skill dependent than Tahm or Morg. It requires very good timing and sort of game knowledge and positioning by the Thresh, whereas Tahm and Morg are just press a button and just make Leona's life really hard. Janna's another skill matchup. Her Tornado can interrupt your E, sort of similar to Thresh's, but it's a lot slower. They nerfed her Tornado speed recently, so that makes it a lot more difficult to pull this off, especially if you're not at a direct, in direct alignment with the Leona. If you're trying to hit it from the side, that makes it a lot harder. But Janna's been nerfed a lot. You can abuse it if you go in with her and she shields somebody. Her shield's going to be on cooldown for 18 seconds. So you can really abuse most Jannas. And it's a lot harder to hit that Tornado than it is the Thresh Flay, as I mentioned before. Now, after they nerf the Tornado speed. So, because what happens a lot of times is Janna will try to Tornado. It will knock the Leona out of the E, but remember Leona gets the extra range on her Q when you activate it. So a lot of times you can still hit the AD carry if Janna's not fast enough, because it doesn't knock them back. It just knocks them up briefly. Whereas Thresh actually physically knocks them back. So it knocks Leona back. So it makes it a lot harder to get in range for that Q. But since Janna just knocks up, a lot of times they're still in range with the extended Q range to land that Q. And once they land that Q, then Aftershock's probably going to hit, and E's or W's going to hit, and your AD carry is still going to blow up. Or the enemy AD carry is still going to blow up. So Janna's soft counter to Leona used to be a hard counter, now a soft counter. And Taric is just difficult to deal with. You can still beat people up early on with Leona versus Taric, but as the game goes on, it makes it a lot more difficult because he has so many shields, heals. You know, he can stun people when you go in. Of course, he has his ultimate once he hits 6, so it just makes it a lot harder for any kind of all-in champion. Once he gets 6, especially once he gets Locket plus Redemption, it's very difficult. So you can beat him up early, but it gets a lot harder as the game goes on. And he's not the easiest cookie to crack early on. He does have a lot of health, and he's going to be getting a lot of the same stuff as you. You know, he's probably going to be getting Ruby Sightstone plus Locket plus Redemption, and he's going to have his shield, his heal, his ult. He's just a nightmare to try to burst through late game. So he's kind of a tough matchup too. So I wouldn't recommend picking Leona into any of these. You can, but I just wouldn't do it. I'd probably play something else if you can. But if you pick Leona and they pick one of these, you can still work around it in descending order of difficulty. You can still work around it, but just you're going to have to use some of the tactics that I talked about before. Okay, but that's it. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed the Leona guide. Be sure to stay tuned to the channel. I'm going to be coming out with some more Season 8 guides very soon. I'm going to try to come up with at least one per week. I already did a Soraka one. I'll link it in the description for you. But check it out. Let me know if you have any questions. If you want to watch some live action, I do stream most nights starting around 9 or 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Be sure to check it out. We have a wonderful community that can answer any questions that you have. I'll do my best to answer questions even while I'm streaming. And it's a lot of fun, so come check it out. All right, that's going to be it. Have a great evening, and I'll see you next time.